production and policy framework for environmental safety management. Environmental safety management. Now, environmental safety represents the systematic approach that an organization adopts to protect the workers, the communities, and the environment from workplace hazards and operational impacts. So this training we are going to do today, it's going to provide you with a comprehensive guide for implementing effective environmental safety management systems that align with international best practices that you find yourself anywhere. The objective of this training is to ensure that you have a professional knowledge that will be able to develop, implement, and maintain a comprehensive environmental safety program that will protect the people, the properties, the environment, while you are ensuring regulatory compliance and operational excellence for your organization. So let's go there. Let's start with the business case for environmental safety management. Now, organizations are committed to a robust environmental safety management to help them realize the significant benefits that this has, including a reduced incident, a lower insurance that comes to their organizations, improved employee morale, enhanced reputation, regulatory compliance, and sustainable operational performance. Now, studies consistently demonstrate that proactive safety investment yield higher returns or greater returns of as high as 4:1 through avoidable cost and productivity improvements in their various organizations. Now, effective environmental safety programs begin with visible leadership commitment. Without that leadership commitment, it becomes very, very difficult for any organization to have a committed environmental safety program. So for you to have that committed safety or environmental safety program, it has to begin with what? Effective leadership commitment. Leadership must be committed. The senior management of the organization must be committed to ensure that what the environmental safety programs of the organization are effective. They must demonstrate their own dedication, and this has to be done through policy statements. Now, it's not only policy statement, it also has to be done through resource allocation. How much do they allocate to the resources? It also has to be done through effective or regular communication. It has to be done with personal compliance. How does the management then say comply with those environmental safety requirements? Okay, and there should also be an accountability system. This accountability statement tries to reward safe behaviors so that the management begins to reward, to give incentives to people who are doing well, to those people who are more committed to ensure that there is a safe and viable environmental program on ground. Now, let's look at a sample policy statement. The Environment and Safety Management Institute as a community or as an organization can be used as an example. Now, if you have a policy statement like maybe the Environment and Safety Management Institute has a policy statement that reads like this: the Environment and Safety Management Institute is committed to providing a safe, healthy, and environmentally responsible workplace. We recognize that our people are most valuable asset, and protecting their well-being is both a moral obligation and business imperative. We pledge to comply with all applicable regulations, prevent pollution, continuously improve our environmental safety performance, and engage all employees in our safety culture. Every person has the right to return home safely each day, and we will provide the resources, the training, and the leadership necessary to make this commitment a reality. Now, once you make a policy statement like this and put it on ground, everybody begins to know that, okay, this is the direction that you are going. And when you are beginning to deviate from this policy statement, some people will begin to guide you and say, Oga, you say that this is how this thing should be done, and it's not being done like that. So it draws your attention back and say, oh, this is where we are deviating. So you must make a policy statement that is reliable. But remember, it is not only policy statement, it also has to do with resource allocation. In your budget, you have to make the resources available for environmental safety programs. It does not only end with resource allocation, it has to do with regular communication. You know, there is this religious saying that say, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. So when you begin to talk, when you begin to say this thing to the people day in, day out, it begins to know that, oh, this is the soul of the organization being communicated out, and people begin to follow. So environmental safety is not just all about policy statement, it also has to do with your resources. How much money have you made available? I was reading through a country's policy on elections, and that country was doing their policy on election, and they started complaining that for them to be able to electronically transmit election results, they don't have the required network coverage. So if that network coverage becomes a problem, how much resources have they allocated to ensure that they have an effective network coverage? The same thing applies to issues of environmental safety. If you wake up and begin to complain that, oh, you are not having the desired resources, or you're not having the desired equipment to effectively manage your waste, how much resources have you allocated to those purchase of equipment? How much resources have you allocated for safety gears? So these things has to be in place, and apart from resources, you have to continuously communicate to ensure that the policy, the programs, or whatsoever thing that you are doing is safely being implemented. The three pillars of environmental safety. Three pillars, okay? The three pillars of environmental safety. And what are these pillars? Number one, the people. Very, very important. Apart from the people, the planet. And then we talk about the properties. You can say they are the three P's of what? Environmental safety. Let's look at them one by one. The people. Protecting the health, the safety, and the well-being of your employees, your contractors, your visitors, and your community members from the workplace hazards and operational impact is very, very important. And that's the first P. The what? The people. The second P is the planet. When you minimize environmental impact through your pollution prevention, your resource conservation, your waste reduction, your protection of the ecosystem and the natural resources, then you are what? You are taking the what? The second pillar. The planet. You need to preserve your environmental resources. How do you manage your water? You don't just need to be disposing water and wasting water. Because how do you manage your waste? Okay? Resource conservation is very, very important. How do you prevent pollution? It's not all about control. How do you prevent it? It's a key thing, okay? How do you protect the natural environment? How do you protect the ecosystem? That is the second pillar of what? Of environmental safety. And then the third pillar is the property. When you safeguard your physical assets, when you safeguard your infrastructure, when you safeguard your environment, your equipment, the facilities, when you safeguard them from damage, from loss, or from degradation while you are ensuring your business continuity, that is important. Yes. I come out from a community that has a very funny saying. They will tell you to wayo over yo. Now what this means is that you destroy the iron to bring the iron. That is literal translation. But what the meaning behind this is, when you destroy the iron, you bring the cash, and it is the cash that you use to buy the iron. So this saying was initiated by commuters, whereby all those wheelbarrow pushers, motorcycle riders, or commercial drivers, they will overload their vehicles, and if you complain, they will tell you that they are killing the iron to what? To bring the cash, and it's the cash that buys the iron or works on the iron. That should not be the basis of the saying of somebody who wants what? Environmental safety legal framework. Environmental safety practitioners must understand and comply with multiple layers of regulations. Multiple layers. It's not something that is just one layer. Multiple layers of regulation. Now, let's first of all look at the international standards. That is the first layer. International standard, the one that is global. When we are talking about an international standard is the least minimum standard that countries all over the world have come to agree that this should be the least minimum of doing something. Okay, international standard, they are the least minimum standard that you are expected to comply with. And the first of this international standard is what we call ISO 14001. ISO 14001 is called Environmental Management System. It provides a globally recognized framework for managing environmental responsibilities through a systematic planning, a systematic implementation, and a continuous improvement. So ISO 14001 talks about what? The systematic planning, the implementation, and the continuous improvement of what? Of environmental responsibilities. So organizations that want to achieve ISO 14001 certification demonstrate commitment to reducing environmental impacts. So by the time you demonstrate this commitment to reducing environmental impacts in your organization, then you are working towards what? Achieving your ISO 14001 certification. Another one is ISO 45001. ISO 45001, which is Occupational Health and Safety Management System. Remember, 14001 is what? Environmental Management System. Then 45001 is what? Occupational Health and Safety Management System. It establishes requirements for protecting the worker. It protects the worker's health and safety through hazard identification, risk assessment, and preventive controls. Another layer of legislation that environmental safety practitioners needs to get themselves acquainted with is national standards. National world standards. These national standards vary for different countries. Most countries maintain a very comprehensive occupational health and safety law that establish the duty of the employer, the duty and right of the workers, the enforcement mechanism that will be done in that regard, and the penalties that are involved. Now, let's take, for example, the Occupational Health and Safety Act in the United States. This Health and Safety at Work Act that is also used in the United Kingdom, and other equivalent legislations like the Labour Act in Nigeria, the Occupational Safety Act in the United Arab Emirates. These are various acts that put together what it is required of an organization, the right of the worker, and how this right will be implemented. So you discover that globally there are variations of these laws. Some are environmental laws, which typically tries to show what such organizations should be able to stand for. Apart from that national laws, there are also what? Regional or local requirements, like state, provincial, or municipal authorities. They establish their own additional requirements that address local concerns. For instance, things like groundwater protection, noise control, land use restrictions, specific industry hazards. These are what are regional or local requirements. So that is the reason why if you go to a country like Nigeria, you will discover that the various states also have their own state laws that establishes their ministries of environment, that establishes their ministries of works, that establishes their sanitation authorities. All these laws are what are regional or local laws. And there are also some laws that are established by the local governments or the municipal what authorities. These are what are regional and local laws. Then we also have industry specific standards. Okay, certain industries have specialized requirements. For instance, chemical facilities must comply with the processes and safety management standards. Construction sites also have specific fall protection and excavation laws. Healthcare facilities also meet specific infection control and medical waste regulations. Okay, like if you talk about duty care principle, beyond specific regulations, organizations also bear common law duty care, requiring them to take reasonable steps to prevent foreseeable harm that can happen to their employees and the other affected by the operations of that organization. So somebody will ask, what are the consequences? What are the consequences of non-compliance? What are the consequences of non-compliance? Okay, there are consequences of non-compliance. Failure to meet with these environmental safety regulations or obligations carries serious consequences, including financial penalties and fines. Some of them are even resort to criminal prosecution, so that the responsible parties will know that, oh, this is where they have gone beyond the threshold of what they should do. Civil liabilities for damages can also be consequences. Operational shutdowns. If you go to countries like Nigeria, you will realize that some of their enforcement organizations like NESRA will go and shut down your company completely when you fail to live according to the standards that the law says that you should operate. Sometimes your permit can even be revoked. Okay, and then some of these things cause reputational damage, increased insurance costs, loss of business opportunities, and others. So it is good to look at the laws that guide your operations, beginning from the international laws, the national laws, the regional and the local laws that enforce the operations of your business. Let's look at the plan, do, check and act cycle. The plan, do, check and act cycle. Now, when you want to have an effective environmental management system, it follows a continuous improvement cycle. Okay, and this cycle is what we are referring to as what? The plan, the check, the act, and what? The plan, the do, the check and act cycle. Let's look at the plan. You have to establish your objectives. You identify your hazards and the environmental aspects. You assess your risks, your impacts, and you develop programs to achieve your targets. And after doing that, you move to the next step, which is the do. Because after planning, you must implement. That implementation is the do. Okay, so you plan, you act, and what, and you check. So the do is what is to implement that planned activities through training, operational controls, emergency procedures, and resource allocation. Resource allocation is very, very important, because if you don't allocate the resources, it is not going to be possible for that to be what to be achieved. And then you talk about the what the check. The check. Part of what makes most environmental safety regulations not to be effective is the checking. You monitor the performance through inspection, through audits, incident investigations, and compliance assessment. There must be these checks. And the checks should be what? Inspections, it should be audits, incident investigations, and compliance what? Assessment. And after you check, you act. What are the actions you need to take? You need to review your results. When you review your results, it helps you to identify improvement opportunities. It helps you to take corrective actions and revise your plan where necessary. Because some plans that you do some plans you have, when you do them, when you implement them, they don't give you the results. So when you check, you realize that, oh, this is not what we wanted to achieve. You go back to your planning again to see how you will achieve what you wanted to achieve. So this action of reviewing results helps you. It's a systematic approach that ensures that environmental safety performance continuously improve rather than remaining static. And that is the cycle. You first of all plan, you do, you check, you act, and it continues in that cycle. How do we integrate this with business operations? Integration with business operations. How do we integrate this with what? Business operations. Environmental safety management should not function as a separate activity, but rather it should integrate into core business processes. Environmental safety management should not function as what? As a separate activity. It should be integrated into what? Into core business processes. Safety consideration must inform the design of your decisions. Okay? Because when you consider these safety issues, these environmental safety issues at the back of your plan, you definitely begin to see how your decisions will be affected. It should also inform your procurement specifications. It should also inform your operational procedures. The contractor you are going to select, it should also be part of it. And the performance evaluations that you are doing, the environmental safety management should also be part of it. So when your environmental safety management becomes embedded in your organizational culture, rather than just viewed as an add-on, you begin to see sustainable performance, sustainable improvement, and sustainable results. So wherever you find yourself in, always remember that environmental safety management is an integral part of your what? Of your business operation. It is an integral part of what? Your business operation. So in everything you do, in everything you act, make sure that from your planning, from your actions, and from your results, environmental safety management has to be part and parcel of your organizational goals. Thank you very much for being part of our class today. I would like to see your comments, your views, and your questions in the comment section. And after this class, if you want to follow up with more questions, if you want to register and be part of our training, visit www.esmi.org.ng to register and become a professionally trained environmental safety manager. Or you can send us a WhatsApp message on 081-7971-6797. Thank you, and see you in the next class.